rid of a government before a general election, and that is if that government, not the Prime Minister, but if that government loses a vote of confidence in the House of Commons. Now, you think of the size of the Labour majority. Turkeys do not vote for Christmas. And they may get rid of Keir Starmer. In fact, I think they probably will get rid of Keir Starmer. But they're not going to get rid of a Labour government knowing that there isn't going to be another one for many, many years to come. So I'm sorry, we've got them until 2029. That's the bad news. Yeah, I always tell the truth. That's the bad news. The good news is that, therefore, we have time to do all the things that reform has got to do. Remember, we're a very new party, and we've already achieved miracles. This time last year, we had a handful of branches. Now we've got more than 400 branches. Until last year, we had no MPs. Now we have got MPs in Parliament. Well, where else would an MP be? But now we have got MPs. We weren't in control of any councils. And now we're in control of 10 councils. Our membership was quite respectable, but it was only tens of thousands. Now it's more than 240,000. So what that shows is the progress we can make in a very short space of time. And therefore, if we have more than a short space of time, just think what we can achieve. And yes, there are things we've got to do. We've got to win many more local councils. That's why the elections next May are very important and are at the moment the priority in Reform HQ. We've got to do that. We've got to put together a team of people who will look to the public as if they could form the Reform Cabinet. And if we don't do that, people say to me all the time, who's going to be the Foreign Secretary? Who's going to be the Chancellor? I say, goodness only knows. But it will happen. We have to make that happen. We may reshuffle that team once, twice, 3 times before the election, but as long as we've got a team, people will think we can actually govern. Because you would be amazed at the number of people who want us in government, but who want to be convinced that we will know what we are doing. Now, if you just look at the speech that we've had immediately before lunch, that is an example of how you can take over government, in this case local government, government from nothing and make a big success of it. So we know that we can do that. We have to convince the electorate. So everything is going in the right direction. So what is it that we're going to do when we have won the next general election? Well, the first thing we will do, the very first thing, is to control our own borders. As we were driving here today, Andy, who was driving me, pointed to a hotel and he said, that is being used for migrants. And what stage have we got to when practically everywhere you go, somebody can point to a hotel and say, that's being used for migrants? No hotel should be used for migrants. Now let's go right back to basics. Why do they come here when they're in a completely safe country like France? Why do they come here? And the answer is that we are just about the softest touch in the whole of the Western world. We don't have national identity cards. We do not routinely practice detention. We do have a flourishing underground economy. And we do put our migrants in places from which they are free to come and go. And so the inevitable happens. At the point where they think they are going to be refused, they simply disappear. And the truth is, we have no idea what the total number of illegal migrants in this country is. That is how out of control we are. So what we need to do is to reverse the message. Now, at the moment, the message is, if you get into Britain, you're very, very unlikely ever to be removed. You know, the odds are completely against it. Might happen, but it's very unlikely. We need to reverse that message, to say that if you come to Britain from any safe third country, such as France, if you come to Britain from somewhere that is perfectly safe, we will automatically refuse your claim for asylum. Automatic. It won't be examined, it won't be looked at, because we will know that you have come from a perfectly safe third country. Oh, but then we will immediately, upon your setting foot on this country's shores, we will detain you in secure reception centres. Not prisons before all the lefty lawyers see pound signs. Not prisons, but reception centres, but secure ones, so that they will not be free to run away, so that they will not be free to roam the streets, so that they will simply not be free, full stop. And then the third is we will deport. Now, therefore, what is the message from that? Come to Britain with a false claim. You will be refused from the outset, you will be detained, and you will be sent back home. Now, who's going to pay £15,000 to a human trafficking agent for that? That is what we need to do, and that is what we will do. Now, obviously, you can't just magic up detention centres overnight. Oh, but you can get them in place very quickly. You think how quickly, during COVID, the army built the Nightingales. It can be done. And not only can it be done that we can build, but there are plenty of places that we can take over and use on a temporary basis as secure centres. So that is the first thing we will do. We will get back control of our borders. And we will not pay a penny more to France, who take our millions and who then do absolutely nothing. We even had, a couple of months ago now, a man with one leg. And they stood and they watched him, hobbling all the way along the beach onto a boat. They couldn't even stop a man who only had one leg. And the answer is, of course, the reason they couldn't stop him was because they didn't want to stop him. The French want the problem sent across to us. They do not want to deal with it themselves. So there will be not a penny more to France. So that is the way that we will control our own borders. We will also use safe third countries. Rwanda is a possibility, because as far as we're concerned, if they don't want to go home, say to the Taliban, if they don't want to go home, that is fair enough if they're prepared to go to a safe third country, which is where we will send them. So we have a comprehensive policy for controlling our borders. We also need to do something with our failing health service. Now, I said in 1998, yes, really, 1998, when I was Shadow Health Secretary, that our health service is not, and I was talking about then, let alone now, is not fit for purpose, because it was founded on 3 completely false premises. Now, Bevan really thought that as we got healthier, as a result of having the NHS, and on that score he was right, we have got healthier, but he thought as we got healthier, demand would decline. Now, it may sound stupid now, but don't forget this was the 1940s. And that was how he saw it working out. He did not foresee, because he could not have foreseen, because it would have been science fiction in the 1940s. He didn't foresee the massive surge of medical and surgical science, which began in the early 60s and which has kept going ever since. It put it at its simplest. Before there was any hip replacement surgery, there was no queue for hip replacements. And so every time there's a big advance, medically or surgically, a huge tail of demand comes with it. He didn't foresee that. He also didn't foresee the incredible rise in longevity. And again, there was no reason for him to foresee that in the 1940s. In 1950, women's average longevity, and remember we lived longer than the men, women's average longevity was 69 years. 69. Now it's 83. And you only need for that to continue very, very gently. You don't need science fiction rises of how we're all going to live to be 200. You only need the longevity rate to rise very gently, and the impact on the NHS and, of course, on social care is huge. He didn't foresee that. And the third mistake he made was he really believed, and it wasn't unreasonable then, he really believed that the health service was going to be largely funded by national insurance, or, as it was called in those days, the stamp. And he really believed that that was going to fund the health service. Well, these days, over 80% of health service funding comes from general taxation. And not even all the rest is from national insurance. Only a very tiny proportion these days is from national insurance. So 3 very false premises, all of them reasonable at the time. But they haven't stood the test of time. And politicians do not have the courage to turn around and say, we cannot make this work. And we cannot make it work as it is now. And we have to look for completely different ways of doing it, while sticking firmly with Bevan's vision, which was that nobody should ever be denied health services because they are too poor. That was his vision. I can't believe anybody disagrees with that. But the vehicle he chose, not the vision, the vehicle, was therefore everything free at the point of reception, regardless of the means of the individual. And it is the vehicle, not the vision, which has broken down. And so we've got to find completely different ways of dealing with that and of funding the health service, while, as I say, sticking very firmly to that central principle, which is that nobody should ever be denied because they cannot pay. But when I say that, people say, oh, you know, if you're going to involve the private sector more, you're going to create a 2-tier service. Well, at the moment, we've got a 3-tier service, ladies and gentlemen. On the top tier are those who get their NHS treatment, or they choose, for whatever reason seems good to them, they choose to go private. But on the next tier are those who don't get their NHS treatment, either because there's postcode prescribing, or the waiting list is so long that their condition would deteriorate, or whatever the reason might be, they don't get their NHS treatment. And that group can, they don't choose to, but they can, sometimes at enormous sacrifice, go private. But on the third tier, you've got people who do not get their NHS treatment, and who, if they starved for 6 months, still couldn't afford to go private. They are completely dispossessed, and they're the very people for whom the health service was set up in the first place. Now, that is the situation we're in, and we need to be very blunt about it. Individuals who can have got to contribute a bit more, even if it's only through workplace insurance schemes, but they've got to contribute a bit more so that we can expand resources, and we've got to use them more effectively. And we've got to use them for things that are necessary, rather than merely things that people choose. You know, at the moment, we're spending a sweet fortune on people's injections to lose weight. Now, I don't know about you folks, but when I want to lose weight, and I need to, yes, I know, I eat a bit less. And it's very difficult. I eat a bit less. And I move a bit more. That's even more difficult. And I move a bit more. And that is the way that people should cope with taking control of their own health. So we have to look at it and we have to say, what should we do? It is quite wrong that one person is denied a vital service so that another person can get something that is optional. That is quite wrong. And we will, between now and the general election, we will come out with a comprehensive plan for health and for the much more challenging side issue, which is social care, which is really massive. And I'm pleased to say that recently we've recruited somebody who is an expert on social care and who I hope is going to help us devise a comprehensive policy. So those are the sorts of things that we will be doing. And we will be reducing taxes. Now, you know, Liz Truss was quite right about what she wanted to do. What she got wrong was she tried to do it all at once. She tried to do it without taking the markets with her. She tried to do it without taking her colleagues with her. And she mishandled the whole thing. But the principle that if you reduce taxes, you promote growth is a sound and incontestable one. If you raise costs for employers, as Rachel Reeves is doing, if you raise costs for employers, it is going to have a negative impact on employment. Anybody in the first week of an economics course would know that. And she claims she spent 10 years advising the Bank of England on economics. So we will handle the economy in a responsible way with the principal aim of making Britain grow, making Britain boom, making Britain competitive. You know, we really should, when we left the EU, we should have immediately become competitive with them. Instead of which the Tory government, as it was then, raised our corporation rates to exactly the same level that they have in France. Why? And then we were surprised when businesses went off to Ireland. And so at the moment we're in a situation, rich people are leaving, and that's not going to do the Treasury any good. Businesses are investing elsewhere. That's not going to do Britain any good. And that is what is happening because our economy is being so badly handled, and will be badly handled probably for another 4 years. Now, somebody, as I was going round, said to me, whatever sort of state will we be in 4 years' time? And the answer is we will be a very, very poor country. That is where we're heading. And that is why we desperately need reform, why we need something new. The quality of parliamentarian on both sides of the House at the moment is the lowest I have ever known it. We will bring in quality. Where we haven't got enough quality elected, we will make up for it by taking advice from those who have that quality. We will run this country as it deserves to be run. But first, we've got to get there. We've got to get there. And that is all down to every single one of you in this room. Every single one of you has a role to play in making sure that we rescue Britain. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. That's what we've now got to do. We've got to rescue this country from the clutches of two parties that have failed abysmally. Failed abysmally. So that is what we're going to do. That is why every single one of you here has a vital role to play. It doesn't matter how modest a role. If you don't like debating with people and you don't like knocking on doors, that's fine. Just deliver leaflets and deliver leaflets and then deliver more leaflets. For those of you who might be considering standing either for local government or for central government, don't just consider it. Actually do it, because it is what we need. Now, I'm going to say again a huge thank you to you today, 190 of you out on a Sunday, devoting yourselves to politics is something that we don't often see in this country. And the reason we're seeing it is because more and more people know that what we've got isn't working and isn't going to work. So thank you very much for all you're doing. Thank you even more for what you will be doing. Thank you for doing it all the way up to the next general election, albeit that that will almost certainly be in 2029. And meanwhile, I can promise you that at Reform HQ, every minute of every hour of every day is going towards delivering. And when you think what we've delivered in 1 year flat, think what we can deliver in another 4. No, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.